That's going to be level 2, and we're going to make this modern house. We're going to do a little revision of all the tools that we've used in level 1, and we're going to make with these something a little bit more complex, okay? It looks more complex, but it's not that difficult neither, okay? Only difficult things will happen in the following levels. Here it's a good revision, and you can see very quickly you can make something more complex than what it looks. So, how are we going to do it? I'm going to do it as always on the right side. Now, we'll need to start with whatever is on the floor. So, we're going to start by something very simple, which is a swimming pool. If I look down, you can see the swimming pool has a certain depth. So, how do we make the swimming pool? Let's go over here where I get plenty of space, and I'm going to try to avoid, you can see here that my model here is crossing some axes. Try to avoid this to happen, otherwise it's going to make your life a little bit more complex. So R for rectangle, and I'm going to draw my little swimming pool over here. Try to keep a certain proportion, especially that you can help yourself with the avatar here on the left if you build it next to it. So let's look at the swimming pool. This is a bit boring. It's going to be impossible to swim in, so we're going to try to add some details. We're going to use the F for offset, and what we're going to do, we're going to add a little offset, so we're going to copy paste this shape and make it smaller. And now I'm going to use the push tool, and I'm going to push this down. Again, today we won't use any specific tool or measurements, so just feel free to use the size you want. Don't exaggerate too much, otherwise it's going to be harder. Now, the swimming pool, I want that swimming pool to be completely covered. So how do we cover an empty space like here? You could use a rectangle, so add a rectangle, but you could see that it might be a little bit more difficult. Or you could use the L tool. So line tool, you go from one side to another, and then you erase whatever bothers you. Keep in mind that we can brush this after, okay, to make this as a transparent water, but to avoid a fusion between the water and the sides, we're going to push this slightly up, and now it's going to look like a swimming pool. Lots of people that are like, yeah, but the swimming pool, it's got different depth. It could start at 1 meter and then go down at 2 meters. So how do we do it? We're going to make it very simple here. We're going to focus down. We're going to select one segment, and you've seen this in the past with the roof for the basic house in level 1. We're going to just push this up. Remember that when you use the move tool on one segment, you can move it in any direction. You could use the arrows on your keyboard to lock it in one direction, in this case up. Now remember to use the spacebar, click on the sky or the grass, zoom out, and you get your swimming pool done. We're going to brush it after, so we're going to paint it after. Let's focus on the house. When you look at the house, it's rectangular, it's modern, it's minimalist. It's exactly what I'm looking for. But I'm going to make this slightly more complex. How? Let's add a rectangle, not too far from the swimming pool. But imagine I want to make the house not rectangular, but slightly different. So what I can do is just add another rectangle here and erase this segment, and you can see now we get a complex shape. We can push this up slightly. If we're not using specific measurements and you don't have the avatar like me on the left side to understand how big things are, you can use here the little distance. I have it in meters. If you have it in a different unit, double check the PDF that I give you to really understand how to change the units or even the language. So if you don't have it in English like me, double check the PDF that I give you. Anyway, you can see that I pushed it 1 meter, 2 meter, 4 meter. I'm going to try to make it around 1 meter. Doesn't need to be perfect today. What else could we add? I wouldn't be able to go on this house, so on top of this house. Remember, this is more like a terrace, so I would like to add some stairs. So what are we going to do? We've seen this in the past already. We're going to try to divide that into stairs. We're going to make it very simple today. So what are we going to do? It's midpoint. Oops, sorry, made a mistake. Midpoint horizontally. And then midpoint to midpoint, midpoint to midpoint. And then we can just add more stairs. Midpoint, 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 and so on, until you're happy with the amount of steps. And what do? You suddenly push everything. So if you want to finish here or start here, if you want to go further, feel free to go further. And then you decide the length of your steps. Remember, we're not using specific measurements, no stress. Okay, because remember, it's a push tool, you can deform everything. And we get some beautiful stairs. They're slightly different from the one that we had before, but I'm going to teach you in the future how to make these floating stairs, so no stress about it. Now, let's look at this terrace and let's build a beautiful floor here. We're going to use the offset tool and we're going to offset that slightly. Keep in mind that we'll be able to deform this shape after. So instead of pushing it up straight away like that, what I'm going to do is I want to add a little plus to that push tool. And how do you do it? On Windows, you're going to just need to press on Control, CTRL, bottom left side of your keyboard, or Option if you have a Mac. And you can see that there's a little plus following me. What is the little plus, the function of the little plus? Very simple. It's going to add a layer on top. For example, I do it here, again, again, again. And you can see that we're adding layers on top of each other. Just one layer, and remember, feel free to double check the size of your floor. So if you want to make it a wide floor, 4 meter, I'm going to make it around 3 meter. Okay, keep in mind I'll teach you everything about measurements in the future. And as I told you, you can use the push tool and just, oops, sorry, you can see that there's still a little plus. Press on Control and the plus disappears. And now with the push tool I can deform this. Imagine I want to make my floor slightly different to have a nice little terrace here, this closer to the swimming pool, or even fused. Okay, you decide, deform this floor, and feel free to be creative and decide the space you want to occupy. We can add some windows, of course, R for rectangle, or even better, let's use the offset tool. Decide how big do you want these windows, the same way that we've done in the past. Okay, and I could even use the L tool to divide these windows, and even use the erase tool to erase a certain segment that I don't want, because maybe over here you want another rectangle that makes a door. Okay, so feel free to do whatever you want around this floor. Me, I'm going to jump straight away into the next one. So imagine I want another floor. Let's look at the floor that I have here. You can see that it's wider. Okay, so how do we make this wider? There are many ways to achieve that, but I'm going to make it the easiest way. So I'm going to add a layer on top, push tool, but with a plus, and I'm going to add a little layer, and that's going to be the terrace. And you can see that it's full of balconies. So what I'm going to do is just play with it. I want to finish it at the same height. Feel free to deform this. Do you want that to come slightly out? Oops, remember, zoom in, zoom out. And again, I want to finish this at the same length. Remember, an architect is completely free to do what he wants. In another software, it would show you certain limits that you cannot cross. Because remember, we live in a physical world and not in a software, which means that if you over-exaggerate, would this be possible physically to have a balcony that long? Maybe not. Maybe we would need to add a little column here for safety, too much weight. All that comes with different software. But over here, we can just get crazy. Anyway, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna brush that later on. I could add way more details, but let's just continue. So now we're gonna focus on the second floor. F tool, and again I decide of the shape. Push tool with a plus. I'm gonna add a second floor around 3 meters. Okay, and again, how do you want that floor to look like? Oh, you can see that there's a problem. When there is a problem, remember, click on the grass, Control Z, undo, and try to make sure that nothing is selected. Now you can see that when I'll use the push tool, everything will be fine. So again, deform the way you want, try to find out a logic behind your drawing. Okay, you can see here, that's a little bit strange. I'm going to use my push tool and try to finish everything on the same level. It takes a little bit of time, but you'll get better at it. The problem is moving around. Okay, that takes a little bit of time, but when you'll be good with your shortcuts, with the H, the O, and the zoom, things will go much faster. Okay, we get our second floor. Would be a little bit dangerous to live in that house, so we're gonna add a little edge here. Okay, how do we do it? You know it, I'm sure. Let me show you. F for offset, and we add a little space that we're gonna be able to push, and you can see now we got a little limit around our little terrace or balcony. Okay. Again, you could add some windows, you could add other layers on top with the push tool and plus to make a little roof if you feel that it would be important for your design. Okay, feel free to do whatever you want. Now, we could even add a little board here to just jump in the swimming pool. Look at that, we could just do something crazy. Imagine in the morning jumping in your swimming pool directly from your terrace. Why not? Okay, we've got the house done. What about the environment around it? Okay, right now it seems that it's floating on like grass. We can add a rectangle all around it, and that would be the land of our property. You can see that when I go down, I can see the swimming pool. And because I give a certain thickness to everything, it's coming out of my land. We could add something else. A hedge. Oops, it's not working. Click on the grass, push tool, and we get the limits of our property. Let's destroy maybe one part. Imagine I would love a car to enter from here. What do I need to do? I would need to destroy part of my hedge. Very simple. Line tool. Let me just change the view. It's going to be easier for you to understand. Line tool. Line tool. And then now I push down. Remember, you can build things or you can destroy things. I'm not happy how it looks. I'm going to erase this segment, and now cars could come in. You can add a little texture. Yeah, we go for the entrance. And remember that you can just brush everything if you want to make it a little bit cooler. Okay, imagine I want transparent windows. There we go. The water. Semi-transparent, here we go, and then on and on and on and on. So feel free to brush it the way you want. This is an example of final result, Enjoy!